Welcome to Queer Becoming's Beyond Survival, the podcast where it gets better finally gets receipts. We sit down with brilliant, bold, beautifully queer humans who once found themselves stuck in a situation, a relationship, or a whole life chapter where they felt defeated. And then, through introspection, humility, courage, and action, they flip the script.
This podcast isn't about giving you advice or telling you what to do. It's a place where we ask the question, what does it look like to live beyond survival? We'll spotlight some of our most vulnerable and profound moments, the breakthroughs that took everything we had and reshaped our futures.
These are real queer people sharing real queer victories. So buckle up, hydrate, and prepare to laugh, cry, and blurt out, "You did what?" Because right here, we're not just surviving, we're becoming. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm one of the 3 hosts for this podcast. In this first episode, we're going to be sharing some of our own experiences. Before we dive in, we want to offer a bit of context for something that's part of all of our stories and will come up throughout the podcast. The 3 of us got to know each other through our participation in a personal development course called the Landmark Forum. The forum invites people to take a deep look at how they relate to themselves, others, and life. For each of us, it had a profound impact on how we live as queer people, so it's part of what we'll be sharing here. The intention of this podcast isn't to promote any one program, practice, or set of beliefs. It's simply to share the variety of incredible lives queer people are living.
All right, so let's get into it.
I'm Allison, they, them pronouns. I'm multiracial, predominantly Asian, queer and trans, specifically gender nonconforming, and I'm joining you from Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm Elliot, he, him pronouns. I'm Chicano and reconnecting to my indigenous roots. I'm a two-spirit trans masc, and I'm joining from the Mojave Desert in Southern California.
And I'm Alex, he, they pronouns, half Indian, queer, and trans masc. I'm in North Carolina at the moment, but in 3 weeks I'll be living in Spain.
Allison is a queer, gender nonconforming, multiracial child of Trinidadian immigrants. They have spent nearly a decade as a DEI professional, traveled to 24 countries, and are known for bridging perspectives and evolving communities. When they're not doing the work they love, they're spending time with their family, participating in queer sports, or nerding out on some form of self-development, prayer, or meditation. When we met, I experienced you as like this self-expressed badass, kind of a force of nature, to be perfectly honest. Um, but who were you before the forum?
It's so funny, like thinking about it now, because like the year before I did the forum, I had a therapist who I loved, and we were in session, and then she just said, you act like a 50-year-old man who has 4 kids, no job, and has never saved for retirement. Honestly, I sat there, I was like, you're so right. How am I living my life like this?
And you were how old at the time?
God, I don't know. Let's see. I was 20, 25, 26. No kids, no debt. Like college degree, just finished graduate school, working in corporate America, and DEI. But yeah, like my whole life and my whole experience of life was just like that. Like everything was stressful and doomed and all of these things. Um But yeah, I mean that was a year before I did the forum. Right before I did the forum, I was doing like the best I had done in probably a decade. Um, and I'd have like the occasional bout of seeing myself that way, but for the most part, like I mean, I hadn't seen a therapist in 6 months. I didn't feel the need to. I was pretty like happy and stable and content where I was. Um, yeah. So that was kind of how I went into it, with the exception of I hated my job. Like it was the one thing that wasn't working, but I was like, everything else is fine. So, like that's not abnormal. That's just how it is.
Yeah, right. Um, So then what had you so okay, so everything's great except the job. So what had you tried to make the job better or like your
Oh my God.
perspective on it better, whatever, you
Where
know?
do I start? Okay. I have always had like lots of mentors, and I love like talking to people who have lots of different experiences and then hearing their take on things or how to address things. So I mean, I had talked to probably every mentor I had in my phone. I, like I said, therapy, um, tons of books that I've read, podcasts, like all these different types of things. I even like went to my boss and said, like, I don't feel like a valuable member of this team. And it took like all the courage that I had to say that, you know? But it's just like if after saying that, nothing changes and she still like doesn't give a shit or whatever, then it's time to go.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
So what came of that?
Um, Not much. More so just like digging myself in like into a bigger hole because I was like, okay, well, like I've exhausted. What do you mean, like exhausting all those options, or?
Well, like I meant more specifically like I guess when you said that, like what was the response? Like did that change anything at your workplace, you know?
No, because it was awful and annoying. Um, but it was because she had said like you are a valuable member of the team and this and that and the other, but I couldn't hear it, and I
Mm.
couldn't see that I couldn't hear it. Like I was already listening to her through this filter of you don't give a shit about me. You don't, yeah. So even though she said that, my attitude was like, you can say that all you want, but until I see some action behind those words, I'm not going to be dumb enough to believe it. And all that did to me was just like dishearten me more and more and more and make me more jaded. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I am good with all these other things in my life. I don't have to be working this job. No one in this industry gives a shit or is willing to take these risks anyway. So I just want to be happy. Yeah, and I ended my lease. Ended my lease in Birmingham, and I was gonna quit and move to Boston and be a barista in Jamaica Plain. And I was just done. I just wanted to be happy. That's also like ultimately, that's one of the things that had me do the form is that I was starting fresh. I'm doing something new, can't hurt. And my mom won't shut up about it, so might as well.
When you did the forum, what changed or what started the change, like the turning point, I guess?
Um, so
Or
I recounted that experience to the forum leader. Like me having that conversation with my boss. Because he was like saying all these things and I was like, I already know all this shit. Like I have read an ungodly amount of books, talked to an ungodly amount of people, but like I hear you what you're saying to these things and it's not making a difference. But he was like popping around. I did it virtually. He was like popping around to breakout rooms and I like stopped him because like one of the things is don't leave anything incomplete and like be coachable. So I was like, well, I'm getting my coaching because I paid all this money to be here. So I was like, hey, I was like, okay, here's the thing though. Like I have been vulnerable. I went to my boss and I said that I don't feel like a valuable member of the team. And he was like, okay. And he was like, in a second, we're going to get into making a difference versus making a point. And then he moved on to the next room. And I sat there and I was like, holy shit. I did not go in that conversation to make a difference. I went into that conversation to make the point that I'm not a valuable member of this team. And then, like,
mm,
as I continued to listen, I was like, she couldn't win anyway. Like, it wouldn't have mattered because I was so intent on making this point. I had already gathered all of this evidence. You know, like when you reach that point where you're like, I've gathered enough evidence and this is the conclusion. I don't need more evidence to like tell me otherwise. That was like the point I had reached. Um, but yeah, him saying that really had me like tune into more. Like, what else is there? Because that's actually a great fucking point.
Yeah, wow. So then I'm curious what opened up for you in that realization.
Um, that I had fixed ways of seeing things, and that even though the people around me, I mean, like, people around me would say, like, I'm one of the best listeners that they've ever met, and they can say anything that they need to, that they want to. I'm a great worker, like, I'm curious and interested in all of these things, and so I believed it too. Um, and I genuinely did, like, it was the truth. Like, I'm just a great listener. Um, and I just saw that I maybe like that's kind of true, but what if I take the case that I haven't really been listening to anybody at all?
Mm,
And I've only been listening to the way that I already see them or what I have already decided about them. And that's what was like a huge shift for me because um like I like to believe the best in people, and so I'll like very easily idolize people. You know, so it was not even necessarily that's a bad thing, and I think that's part of what I got. It's not like either good or bad, it's just what is. And so I started to look at other relationships and people and perspectives that I had of the world, and be open to that it could be different than what I'd gathered evidence for.
mm.
So did that conversation with your boss all of a sudden have a new light on it because of getting to see, okay, you were listening for what you already believed she was going to say or what you already believed was the case?
Um, it's more so like I just realized that she had no shot. Like I had already reached a point where she had no shot. So it opened up it had me think about like if I went in there to make a difference, who would I have been in that conversation? Like what would I have said? What and I didn't even need to know all those things to know that it would not. I mean, like I was like, yeah, well, it definitely would have been that. You know? But it was just like also the way that I say because I was trying to like be vulnerable. I was trying to have this like crucial conversation and all of these things. But you know, if you've already come to a conclusion and you 100% believe it, then what's the point in having a conversation?
Mhm.
And so here
And
I am saying, like, you're not listening to me. You don't listen to anything that I say. You've already made up your mind. You're just listening to me because you want me to feel like I am a valuable member of this team and give my opinion. And here I am, and I'm the one doing it.
yeah, that's brilliant. And so I know that you mentioned like looking at your relationships and things that you had kind of already believed. I'm curious of how like those got impacted once you saw this. Like, did this affect your relationships?
Yeah, the one of the biggest ones was with my dad. Um, the forum leader was talking about this distinction called rackets. And he was saying that he was like, there's a racket is a complaint that something, um, shoot, what is it? It's like a consistent complaint, like a reoccurring complaint that you have. Um, and I was like, oh yeah, I I have a racket. My dad is a father to everyone except me. And then he said like there's I saw your expression, Alex. And so the thing with my dad is like he mentors tons of young men, like hundreds, um, over time. And so, you know, I'd seen him like go on trips with people and, you know, go to their graduations and do all of these things. um, and spent all this time with them, but I felt like he was just like never really talking to me. Um, and yeah, I just felt more like like a pawn in his game, sort of, or like a way to like uplift his social status. So it felt like all of my wins or the reason why like he would support me in doing something was so that he could look better. Um, so so yeah, so I realized that I had this like fixed point of view of him that he didn't actually care about me that much, and I was more of like an insurance policy to him than I was anything else because at the end of the day, no matter how much he pissed me off, or even if he still did, or my mom or whatever, like I would take care of my parents. There's no question about that. That has never been something I think anybody would ever question. It's just part of who I am. I will do it. And it felt like a cage, because I felt like he knew that. Um, but yeah, anyway, so the leader said that there's uh, a huge payoff that we get out of it. And so I'm like, hang on a minute. What payoff are you talking about? Because there is not a payoff. I want a relationship with my dad, and he doesn't put in any effort. And so I start listening and stuff, and he's like interacting with somebody else, and I realize that, there's this time where I was like 4 years old, and we were playing hide and go seek, and my dad would come in and like try and find us. And so there I am, like 4 years old. I'm sitting behind this hamper in the bathroom, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna win this game. My dad's gonna think I'm so smart. Like a typical 4 year old, you know? And so he comes in and I hear him. Um, I hear my sister laugh, so I know he's found my sister. And then a couple minutes later, I hear my brother, and I'm like, yes, like I had the best spot. Like he's gonna be so proud of me. And I sat there, and I was like waiting, like, just where you're like fighting to stay still and quiet. And he goes into the kitchen, and I hear like my whole family laughing and talking or whatever, and then I hear them kind of like go up the stairs. And so I'm like, okay, they just need a minute, um, before I before they realize I'm not there. And I just sat there and I waited and I waited. Um, but there was nothing. And what I realized is that in that moment, I decided that my dad loved my brother and my sister more than me, and that he cared about other people more than me. And I called him and I talked to him and told him about it. He doesn't even remember it. I mean, like, he was like, I don't even remember that. And he was like, I'm sorry I didn't find you, but like, I don't remember. And I was like,
It's hide and seek, but it's devastating for a 4-year-old.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, totally. And but then I could see, like, just like you were talking about Elliot, like I could see that it was clouding my view of him. And it didn't matter what he did. I could only see it through the lens of he's a bad father, or he doesn't care about me, or he doesn't care about me as much as the others, or he only cares about me so much as it makes him look good. Yeah. So I called him and I said, I'm sorry for making you out to be a bad father.
What'd he say?
Well, he did what he normally does. He like there was no change over there with him. He was just like, "Yeah, I'm already over that shit." Like I knew that. I mean, I know that. He was like, it was like, but I mean, like I've done everything I can in this, and I was like, it, he was like, but what's going on, or like why'd you call? Seems like there's something upsetting you, and there's something else. Um, and so I said what it was, and he gave all this advice like he does, like I was a fraternity boy. And for the first time, though, instead of hearing it like he doesn't think I know what I'm doing, and he just like sucks at listening to what's going on in my life and I can't say anything, all I could hear, like all the translation I could hear was, I love you. And I realized that he gives that advice and he repeats himself over and over and all those things because he just wants my life to be good. Like he just wants me to be happy. And he will repeat that advice how many ever times it takes so that I can be happy.
Because if he didn't care and he didn't want your life to be great, he wouldn't say anything about that. He'd just be like, wow, that sucks. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it until then. I was like, wow, this guy like really cares about me. He really does. Like more than just like looking good because there's so many other things that he did that I don't know that he's talked about or whatnot, but also like who gives a fuck? Like this is my relationship with my dad, and that was like the other thing that the forum leader had got me present to before I went and called him was that there was a cost. And that co the cost of me having that fixed point of view based on this story that I made up when I was 6 was a relationship with my dad that I wanted.
Oh, what was your payoff, by the way?
Getting to be right about it, feeling justified about it, and having a reason like not to, I don't know, pursue my full potential or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I just got to be righteous and everybody believed me.
So after that conversation with your dad, how, like, what's your relationship with him now? Like, how has that conversation changed things?
Oh my God. Um, it's it's just a completely different relationship. Like before I would call him if something went wrong, if it was a holiday or his birthday or my birthday, and like that was when we would talk. And we'd maybe like check in once a month, twice a month. I live like 2 hours away from home. I think I was going home like 3 times a year or something. Yeah, I go home every month. And I talk to my dad like usually more than once a week. Usually more than once a week. And he just like wants to know what's going on in my life and I want to know what's going on in his life. But yeah, we've been on trips together. We plan dinners like weeks in advance. I'm taking him to see Andrea Bocelli in concert here in Birmingham on the 22nd. Yeah. Um, because we used to love uh listening to him when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's the relationship that I wanted with him. It's the relationship that I wanted with him, where we're more like friends and in each other's lives than like a mentor-mentee sort of thing.
Yeah. So I'm also curious, has this affected other relationships in your life? Like how you approach them, anything like that?
I think there's a great point there about like, you're 4 and somebody who is supposed to be like one of your main sources of love. You're like, oh my God, he doesn't love me as much as he loves other people. There's something that that 4-year-old says about themselves. Is that something that you saw show up in any of your other relationships or even at work?
Um, yeah, that I'm not important to people.
Mhm.
Because if I'm not important to my family, then I'm obviously not important to anybody else. And I didn't realize how much I had believed that. Like, I read all the books, whatever, there's all these affirmations, all these things. And there's like chosen family, like I mean, it's not like everything in my life was shit. Um, but yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
But you're saying that it shows up as, feeling like you don't matter, which certainly matches with the thing that wasn't working in your life when you went into the forum was work and going to your boss and being like, I feel like I don't matter. And that no matter what she said in response, it don't matter because you have the
Yeah.
being right about that you don't matter.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, it's like a core belief. Yeah, a core belief. And because it's so ingrained in my brain, like it's something that I think like shows up every now and then, but not nearly as much as it used to. And it also just like doesn't have power over my life, you know? I can be like, oh, yeah, I remember that story. That's a familiar conversation. Can we move on to the next thing now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then I'm curious about in the space, oh my goodness, in the space of this transformation, what are you like what's next? What are you creating next?
What's
Like
on
what's
the
that?
horizon for you in general?
Yeah.
Well, this podcast. Definitely, it like interviewing more people and having more conversations about what's possible in for queer people. And challenging the I don't know, accepted narrative that we're kind of all fucked. Um, yeah, so that's a big one. Um,
Okay, say more about that. Because that's a big old thing for the queer community. This pervasive sense of we're all fucked. So like what is it that you what does challenging that mean for you?
you know, I used to think that it meant like providing evidence and facts and whatever, but what I've realized is that what like actually makes a difference for people is hearing from each other. And seeing what other people have created so that you can like open up your world into the fact that it is a possibility for you too. Like there is nothing you could have told me that would have convinced me that I could have the relationship that I currently do with my dad. But if I heard another queer person who had a similar experience to that, I would start to be open to the fact that it might happen for me. Like that there is a world in which that's possible and I get to create what that future looks like instead of be dominated by the circumstances.
Which is what you get to be doing right now, is you're sharing your experience with your dad that somebody out there might be like, I couldn't have that.
Hmm.
Yep.
And you're like, you too.
And
Yeah,
you
I mean
too.
like, I just feel like so much of connecting with other queer people, like you end up in these damning conversations about how your family doesn't get you and or they try some things but they still can't get it right and um new laws being passed or things that are being proposed or what they're taking out of libraries and all these things. And it's not that those things aren't like important to know about and that, there's truth to a lot of those things. Um, but I just feel like we've forgotten that to have more space for joy and for celebration and for possibility. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like it's that whole thing of like if I'm not angry and if I'm not aware of every law that's passed or every bill that's being proposed, like all these things, then I'm not being a good person of the queer community, or I'm not like queer enough, or I haven't had enough queer experiences, or I don't really get it.
Yeah.
And I think it like causes like a breakage in that sense of belonging with the queer community, which is like an amazing community to be a part of.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just, like making that possible again and having people have these conversations where it doesn't have like having our whole community see that it does not have to be that way. You don't have to have your life go like that to be queer or to get it or get others people's experiences or what's going on.
Yeah. And I think something else that just occurred to me too as you were creating this is that by like when we create the queer joy in the community, it gives it more room because it can be really hard to not fall into the despair sort of spiral in the way that things are currently being talked about. Just it's very easy to just kind of get sucked into it and then perpetuate it, and then it's like
Yeah.
this negative feedback loop. And so I like how we're like getting to be an interruption here. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, if that stuff empowers you, go for it. Right? Like there was a point in my life where learning about the all those things and keeping up with those things helped me like it lit a fire under my ass, you know?
Yeah.
And but the thing is like that fire burns out, like it gets old after a while and it started to be something that was killing me instead of something that was driving me forward. And all I was doing was getting more angry and more depressed and more upset and farther away from people instead of closer.
Yeah. Well, especially because it's like it's the difference between running from something and running towards something.
Yeah,
Because one of them is like fear and survival, and the other is like you get to create something, and you're like it's like you get to live for something rather than in spite of something, and that's just it's the
right.
difference is night and day.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I'm not running away from something because it's trying to kill me. I'm running towards something that I want,
Yeah.
or I'm running for the sake of running.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Thanks for joining us for this episode.
If you have follow-up questions or something you want us to explore in future episodes, feel free to email us at contact@queerbecomings.com or DM us on Instagram at queerbecomings.
If something inspired you in today's podcast, we invite you to follow it. Go find out what's possible beyond surviving. That risk might be worth it. That conversation you're scared to have might not turn out the way you thought.
Yeah, who knows? Just try taking a new action and see what happens. Or maybe just ask yourself, where could I give myself a little space to dream?